You ever been in a situation where someone disrespects you and everything inside of you wants to fire back? Your heart's racing, fists clenching, and your mind is running a mile a minute coming up with the perfect response. But let me tell you something. What if the most powerful thing you could do is stand still, stay silent? It might go against every instinct shouting inside you, but there's profound strength in silence that we often overlook. Today, I'm going to explore how, by embracing Stoic principles, we can transform silence from a passive to a dynamic action. It's about controlling what we can, our actions and reactions, and finding peace and power in choosing to not engage in the chaos. This isn't just about biting your tongue, it's about mastering yourself in a way that commands respect without saying a word. Stick with me, and I'll show you how choosing to not respond can sometimes be the most powerful response of all. If you appreciate what we're diving into today, the simplest free favor you can do for us is to hit that subscribe button. And make sure you don't skip any part of the video, because each segment is packed with insights that build on each other, leading to a comprehensive understanding of why sometimes silence truly is golden. The power of silence. Have you ever been in a situation where someone disrespects you? Maybe they say something hurtful, demeaning, or just plain rude. It's like a punch to the gut, isn't it? Your first instinct might be to lash back, to let them know they can't treat you this way. Your heart races, your fists clench, and your mind races, crafting the perfect, sharp comeback. But what if I told you that sometimes the strongest response might be to say nothing at all? Now, I know what you're thinking. In our culture, where the loudest voices often seem to dominate, staying silent might feel like you're just rolling over. But let's consider it from a Stoic perspective. Stoicism, a philosophy built on discipline, virtue, and control of one's emotions, teaches us the value of responding to insults not with rash reactions, but with deliberate action, or in this case, deliberate inaction. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When someone disrespects you, it's an outside event. You don't control their words, but you absolutely control your response. Silence, then, becomes a form of strength. It's a choice that says, I am in control of my reactions. I am in control of my peace. By choosing not to engage with the disrespect, you are practicing one of Stoicism's core tenets, focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you cannot. This doesn't mean you're accepting the disrespect or that it doesn't affect you. Instead, you're making a strategic decision to preserve your own inner peace, rather than allowing someone else's negativity to disrupt it. This idea of using silence as a shield is not just about avoiding conflict. It's about empowering yourself. It's about choosing not to let another person's negativity dictate your emotional state. Think about it. When you respond in anger or annoyance, you're essentially giving someone else the reins to your feelings. You're letting their actions disturb your tranquility. But when you choose silence, you keep those reins firmly in your own hands. You remain the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, as William Ernest Henley famously wrote in his poem Invictus. Power in Stoicism isn't about exerting your will over others. It's about self-mastery. It's about having such command over your own emotions and reactions that external events can't shake you. In this context, choosing silence when faced with disrespect is a powerful assertion of your autonomy. You're not swayed by others' provocations. You're steady, like a rock amidst turbulent seas. The unseen strength of silence. It might initially seem counterintuitive, especially in a world that values quick comebacks and the ability to clap back as signs of strength and assertiveness. But consider this from a Stoic standpoint, which teaches us the value of mastering our reactions. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, advocates for internal control over our impulses and emotions. It's not about indifference, but about choosing how and when to express our feelings. So when faced with disrespect, instead of reacting out of emotion, we can choose silence, a powerful response that speaks to our ability to govern ourselves and not be swayed by external forces. Now, why is silence so powerful? First, it forces the other person to confront the reality of their behavior. When you respond with words, often it can lead to a back and forth that just escalates the situation. Silence, on the other hand, is like holding up a mirror to the person. It reflects their actions back at them without the distortion of your reactions. They are left with nothing but their own words or actions, and this can be incredibly disconcerting. Many times this leads to self-reflection, and they might reconsider their actions or words in the future. Silence can shift the power dynamics in an interaction. When someone expects a reaction and you don't give them the satisfaction, you retain control of the situation. Here's where the Stoic idea of focusing only on what we can control is so vital. We can't control what others say or do, but we can absolutely control our response. By choosing not to engage, you keep your peace, and often the other person may end up feeling foolish or overextended as they scramble to justify their behavior in the absence of your expected reaction. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're passively accepting poor treatment. Instead, it's an active decision to protect your inner peace. It's choosing not to waste mental energy on situations or individuals that don't deserve it. This can be incredibly liberating. It's a form of self-care that conserves your emotional and mental resources for the interactions and activities that truly matter. This aligns with the Stoic practice of differentiating between what's within our power and what isn't, and acting only on the former. In the broader sense, practicing silence is also a way of practicing humility, a key Stoic virtue. It requires recognizing that we don't always have to be right, even if we are. It's understanding that sometimes the wisest way to win is to not play the game at all. This doesn't mean we lose, it means we are choosing our battles wisely. Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." He meant freedom from perturbations, from the tyranny of our desires and our reactions. Silence grants us this freedom. It frees us from the tyranny of having to react, of having to prove ourselves, and of being emotionally manipulated. This strategy of silence also prepares us for greater challenges. Each time you successfully employ silence in the face of disrespect or provocation, you are training yourself. Like a muscle, your self-control grows stronger with use. Over time, this makes you more resilient, not just in interpersonal conflicts, but in handling life's bigger challenges. You develop a tranquility that others notice and respect, and that influences the way they approach you. Silence as a strategic choice. Choosing silence in response to provocation isn't merely about biting your tongue. It's a strategic decision that aligns with some of the deepest philosophical and psychological principles taught by Western philosophy and modern psychology. This approach is rooted in the Stoic practice of exercising control over our reactions, a principle echoed by philosophers like Epictetus, who reminded us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Aristotle argued for the golden mean, the desirable middle between 2 extremes, one of excess and the other of deficiency. In the case of responding to disrespect or provocation, silence can often represent this middle ground. Rather than lashing out, excess, or passively accepting deficiency, Silence can be a measured, thoughtful response that maintains one's dignity and composure. From a psychological perspective, Carl Jung, a pioneer in understanding the human psyche, might suggest that silence helps in integrating the shadow self. Jung believed that much of our interpersonal conflict results from projections of our unconscious onto others. By choosing silence, we refuse to project our shadows onto the provocateur, and instead we offer space, both to ourselves and the other, to reflect on the underlying issues of the conflict. Silence also shifts the dynamics of power in an interaction. Plato's concept of the philosopher king, who rules not by force but by wisdom and moral superiority, can be analogized here. When you choose silence over retaliation, you exercise a form of moral and psychological superiority. You assert control over the only kingdom you ever truly govern, yourself. This self-governance reflects the Stoic ideal that true power is dominion over one's internal state rather than over external circumstances. Moreover, silence as a strategic choice is about conserving personal energy. In terms of transactional analysis, every social interaction is a transaction that can either be costly or enriching. By choosing not to engage with negativity, you keep your emotional and psychological resources intact. You avoid the unnecessary expenditure of energy on battles that do not serve your greater good or contribute to your personal growth. The effectiveness of silence is also supported by modern communication theories, which suggest that silence can communicate profoundly. Sometimes, what we choose not to say can be more powerful than what we do say. Silence can create a pause, a space for the other person to fill with their own thoughts, which can lead to greater self-awareness or discomfort, forcing them to confront their own behaviors and possibly reconsider their actions. This choice is not about passivity. It is a form of active engagement where the battleground is internal, fought within the arenas of our minds and souls. This inner battle is about maintaining our philosophical center, in line with Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, where he advises that the best revenge is to not be like your enemy. In practicing strategic silence, we align ourselves with a long tradition of thinkers who have recognized the profound strength in restraint. We make a conscious choice to elevate ourselves above petty squabbles and focus on greater philosophical pursuits, like the pursuit of personal virtue and the maintenance of peace within. This aligns closely with the Stoic goal of living in agreement with nature, understanding that the natural state of the human spirit is peace and equanimity, not disorder and upheaval. The discomfort of silence. In those moments when words fail to escape our lips in response to provocation, an intense space is created both within us and between us and others. This space, while uncomfortable, holds immense potential for personal and interpersonal growth. It is a concept that might have intrigued Socrates, who championed the idea that true wisdom comes from knowing that one knows nothing. In silence, we confront our own limitations and the boundaries of our knowledge and influence. Aristotle once said, "Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet." This wisdom is particularly relevant when we think about the strategic use of silence. The immediate bitterness of not responding, of seemingly doing nothing, can lead to the sweet fruit of deeper understanding and respect. The restraint shows a mastery over one's impulses that is rare and admirable. It's a demonstration of strength under control, which is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. By choosing silence, we choose to exercise that control, not just over our speech, but over our emotions and reactions. Carl Jung might argue that silence gives room for the psyche to process and integrate complex emotions and thoughts. Without the clutter of reactive speech, we can more clearly see our own shadows and projections. In this quietude, we confront the parts of ourselves that are usually hidden, including our fears, insecurities, and unresolved conflicts. This internal confrontation is essential for growth, as it allows us to resolve internal conflicts and evolve into more whole beings. The discomfort of silence is a practice in endurance and virtue. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic himself, would likely see this practice as a form of facing internal adversity with courage and dignity. Silence, in the face of provocation, is akin to a soldier standing firm under attack, not with weapons, but with the shield of self-awareness and self-control. Moreover, Plato's allegory of the cave teaches us that true enlightenment comes from seeing beyond the shadows and understanding the forms that cast them. Silence can be our pathway out of the cave, as it forces us to look beyond the shadows of our immediate reactions and understand the deeper truths of our situation and character. In the absence of our own noise, we can better hear the truths that the world around us whispers. Stoic Reflections on Silence. Stoicism, at its core, is about embracing what we can control and letting go of what we cannot. The Stoic Reflections on Silence weave seamlessly into this philosophy, treating silence not as mere absence of speech, but as a profound exercise in self-control and mindfulness. Seneca, a Roman Stoic philosopher, emphasized that true silence is the rest of the mind. It is to the spirit what sleep is to the body, nourishment and refreshment. This perspective highlights silence as a form of mental and spiritual rejuvenation, a way to replenish our inner reserves and maintain our equanimity in the face of life's challenges. Silence is a deliberate choice to hold back speech for the sake of greater virtues such as wisdom and patience. It's about knowing when words will contribute to harmony and when they will only serve to inflame passions or feed conflict. As Marcus Aurelius taught, speak only if it improves upon the silence. The implication here is profound. Silence should be the default, broken only by speech that truly adds value, speech that is kind, truthful, and useful. Furthermore, the practice of silence aligns with the Stoic ideal of living according to nature. Stoics believe that rationality is the defining characteristic of human nature, and thus, rational beings should use their faculty of speech judiciously. Silence becomes a testament to one's ability to govern one's impulses and to engage with the world in a thoughtful, deliberate manner. It is an acknowledgement that not every event requires our commentary, and not every provocation demands a response. From a broader philosophical and psychological viewpoint, Carl Jung might suggest that silence allows us to confront our unconscious biases and the projections we place onto others. It offers a space for introspection, where we can explore the reasons behind our urge to speak or react. In these quiet moments, we can uncover deeper truths about our personalities and perhaps discover the less visible motivations that drive our interactions. Plato's idea of achieving the highest good through the pursuit of virtue and knowledge can also be connected to the practice of silence. By refraining from unnecessary speech, we give ourselves the opportunity to observe, listen, and learn, activities that are crucial for the acquisition of knowledge and the cultivation of wisdom. Silence, therefore, is not just a passive state, but an active engagement in the philosophical quest for understanding and virtue. The power of non-reaction. In our daily lives, we're constantly bombarded with situations that could easily stir us into reacting. However, there is a profound strength to be found in non-reaction, a concept deeply embedded in Stoic philosophy. The Stoics teach us that not every action deserves a reaction. More specifically, they suggest that peace comes not from the absence of conflict, but from our ability to choose our response to it. Marcus Aurelius, a staunch advocate of this view, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Non-reaction is not about suppressing your feelings or ignoring the situation. It's about maintaining control over your emotions, allowing yourself to observe the situation with clarity and respond, or choose not to respond, in a way that aligns with your values. This deliberate pause can be incredibly powerful. It gives you the time to process what has happened, to step back from the immediate emotional impulses, and assess the best course of action that serves your greater good. This strategic pause is also supported by the wisdom of Plato, who believed in the pursuit of knowledge as a fundamental life goal. By choosing non-reaction, we give ourselves the space to think, to understand, and to grow in wisdom. We avoid the pitfall of knee-jerk responses, which are often more about emotion than enlightenment. This aligns closely with Aristotle's concept of phronesis, or practical wisdom, the idea that true understanding comes from experiencing and reflecting rather than reacting. From a psychological standpoint, Carl Jung might view non-reaction as a way to deal with the shadow self. By not reacting, we avoid projecting our internal conflicts onto others. We prevent our shadows from dictating our actions, which in turn can lead to healthier relationships and interactions. This self-mastery is an essential part of psychological development and personal growth. Moreover, the power of non-reaction connects to modern cognitive behavioral approaches, which suggest that our thoughts, and not the external events themselves, determine our feelings and behaviors. By practicing non-reaction, we essentially train our brain to focus on our thoughts and decisions in the moment, rather than being swept away by emotional responses. This can lead to more rational, thoughtful interactions with others. The Stoic approach to non-reaction also involves recognizing what is within our control and what is not. Epictetus famously stated, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In this light, non-reaction can be seen as an exercise in focusing solely on what we can control, our own actions and responses. This is incredibly liberating because it frees us from the impossible task of trying to control external circumstances or other people's behavior. The power of non-reaction lies in its ability to transform potentially negative situations into opportunities for personal empowerment and inner peace. By choosing not to react, we are not showing weakness. Rather, we are demonstrating a commitment to ourselves and our peace of mind. We embody the Stoic ideal of inner tranquility and rationality, showcasing that true control comes from within, not from exerting force or will over others or situations. Embracing silence in practice. In practical terms, embracing silence means developing an awareness of our impulses to speak and react, then consciously choosing when to act on those impulses. It's about recognizing that not every situation needs our commentary, not every question needs our answer, and not every offense needs our rebuttal. Here, silence becomes an exercise in restraint and mindfulness, qualities lauded by both Stoic and Buddhist philosophies as pathways to enlightenment and peace. Aristotle's virtue ethics also play a role in this practice. He taught that virtue is found in moderation and that the wise seek the mean between excess and deficiency. Silence, then, can be viewed as the golden mean in communication, neither speaking too much, excess, nor too little, deficiency, but just enough to maintain harmony and effectiveness in our interactions. Furthermore, practicing silence aligns with Jungian psychology, which emphasizes the importance of self-reflection and facing one's inner self. Carl Jung believed that much of our psychological growth stems from our ability to confront and integrate the shadow aspects of our personality. Silence forces us to turn inward, to stop projecting our thoughts, feelings, and motives onto others, and to start examining them ourselves. This introspection can lead to profound self-discovery and healing. To start embracing silence in your daily life, you can begin with small, intentional practices. It might be as simple as pausing for a moment before responding to a question, allowing yourself a breath to collect your thoughts. Or it could involve deeper practices like meditation or mindfulness exercises, where the focus is on observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment or immediate reaction. Another practical application is in the art of active listening. This involves listening to understand, not to reply. When you listen actively, you give your full attention to the speaker, absorbing not just their words, but the feelings and intentions behind them. This can transform conversations, making them more meaningful and less confrontational. Embracing silence can extend to how we engage with the world at large. In a culture that often values noise and busyness, choosing silence can be a radical act of self-care and resistance. It allows us to step back from the constant stream of stimuli and demands, and to find clarity and peace in the quiet. This might mean unplugging from digital devices for a period each day, seeking out natural settings, or simply dedicating time to be alone with one's thoughts. Silence as your shield. When we think about defending ourselves, our minds often turn to arguments, explanations, and confrontations. Yet there is a more subtle, often more powerful form of defense: silence. This isn't about hiding or avoiding conflict, but about choosing a response that preserves our inner peace and deflects negativity. In the Stoic tradition, silence can serve as a shield, not just against external disturbances, but also against internal turmoil. Stoicism teaches us the value of maintaining a calm interior regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius advocated for a life lived in accordance with reason and virtue. He noted, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Here, silence is seen as a strategic tool to keep one's mind uncluttered by petty disturbances. By choosing not to respond with words, you're not showing weakness, but rather demonstrating the strength of your convictions and your control over your reactions. This practice is not just philosophical, but practical. When we use silence as a shield, we engage in what Aristotle described as the golden mean, the virtuous middle between the extremes of excess and deficiency. Speaking too much can often lead us into trouble, exacerbating conflicts or revealing more than we should. Conversely, a complete lack of communication can lead to isolation or misunderstanding. Strategic silence finds the balance, providing just enough engagement to be present while withholding unnecessary words that might escalate tensions. Carl Jung might suggest that by embracing silence, we confront our shadow self, the darker, unexamined parts of our psyche. Jung believed that much of our conflict with others stems from unrecognized aspects of ourselves. Silence forces us to turn inward, to examine our motives and feelings rather than projecting them outward onto others. This introspection can be a form of self-defense, preventing our less rational impulses from taking the wheel and potentially leading to regrettable confrontations. Moreover, using silence as a shield involves an understanding of one's own boundaries and limits. It's an acknowledgement that not every battle is worth fighting. Plato emphasized the importance of ruling through wisdom and self-control rather than force. In our daily interactions, this can translate to choosing silence as a way of maintaining sovereignty over our inner state. Silence also conserves energy that might otherwise be spent on fruitless endeavors. Every moment we choose to remain silent in the face of provocation, we are making a conscious decision about where to allocate our resources. This conservation allows us to focus more on what truly matters: our personal growth, our loved ones, and our passions. It's about prioritizing long-term peace over short-term victories, an approach that can transform how we navigate both challenges and relationships. In practice, making silence your shield means recognizing when words will escalate a situation rather than resolve it. It's about learning to pause before reacting, giving yourself a moment to consider whether engagement will improve the situation or merely satisfy an urge to be heard. This doesn't mean we never speak our minds, but rather that we speak when it is constructive and remain quiet when it is not.